Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Moonlit Conversations with Hearts, Minds, and Families. This is episode 5. Today's episode, we thought we would venture into the topic of tips for a happy marriage, a happy Muslim marriage. None of us have perfect marriages. I don't know that there is any such thing as a perfect marriage. So we will just be giving advice from our own marriages and what we think constitutes a happy marriage, because happy for everybody is different. So before we begin our conversation, I asked everyone to think about what 3 words you would use to describe a happy marriage. So, Iram, why don't you start?
Oh, I should start.
Yeah.
Mines were boring. The original one was interesting, but it's okay.
Let's hear the original, because there's always the original and then the real one.
No, I met in very good terms with my husband. So, alhamdulillah, for me, it's forgiveness, and what did I say? It was forgiveness, it was kindness, and humor.
Those are good ones.
Yeah, it was that.
That's really good. Did you ask your husband? Did he give you a response?
It was lack of sex. But it was also adventurous, blissful, and there was one other thing. I'm not remembering, but it was something good. It was good. Yeah.
Shahnila, how about you? What are your 3 things? 3 words.
My 3 things would be what would it be? I know you told me to think about this, but just there's some that are just generic, right? So one would be having a lot of compassion for myself and my spouse. The other one would be respect, mutual respect, and affection. Yeah. So for me, I asked my husband, and he said love. So in all, forms, whether it's intimacy and like showing outwardly. So love, respect. So we had the same one. So love, respect, and communication.
Those are really good ones.
Yeah.
All right, Seema, what about you?
Well, Shahnila took a couple of mine. I have written down communication, affection, and fun. But I guess communication, I know, was really important. That was the very first word that came to mind. I'm always talking about that. But even like affection can also be intimacy and like connection. So communication, connection, and fun.
Nice. What did your husband say?
He was cheesy. He didn't give me a second answer. His first answer was Seema and Samir.
That's cute.
That was his answer. And then I was like, I'm going to share this tonight. And he's like, well, that's hilarious. Go ahead. So
that is fun.
Okay, so mine, I wrote down mine, and then I asked my husband, and then of course he had like some trolling type responses.
Yeah. He likes to troll, right?
Yeah, he does. He said, happy wife, happy life. And then I said, that's 4 words. And those are 2 different phrases. But then he ended up saying, so I said, trust, security, and patience. And he said, trust, understanding, and accountability.
Safa says on YouTube, such a cute answer. Safa and Nazia, we would like to see your answers too.
Yes, tell us. What do you think? What are your 3 words that you would use to describe a happy marriage? And anybody else listening to just let us know. What are your 3 words?
Especially if it's something we haven't thought of yet.
Yeah. One thing that I realized that some of them are the husband and wife, they kind of said the same answer, at least one of them, that we kind of have that agreement on. And with mine, I was really surprised that my husband said communication because he's not a talker. And I was like, communication, I'm the one who wants that. And you're just, there's more lack of communication from him, from his end.
But maybe he's aware that that's necessary,
Yes.
even if it's something that he has to work on.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had posed the question on Instagram and we got a few answers. So I'm just going to give one or two, but I'm going to start with one. So this was not your 3 words. This was, what do you think are the secrets to a happy marriage? And one person said something that I appreciate what she's saying. And I know a lot of people talk about this, but I don't know that I agree. And she said, apologize, even if you think you are right. And she said, I diffused so many arguments this way. What do you guys think about that?
I agree.
I think it's helpful for some things. It's more of a pick your battles type thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I know the apologize word connotation sounds as if putting it under the rug, but like Mariam said, diffusing, going around it. It's like,
Yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily apologizing, but it's more just I'm not going to continue with this. Like we're not going to agree. Nobody's going to agree who's right or wrong. So we're just going to like move past whatever the topic is.
I can say I agree with that. I think that I definitely I do that sometimes, but specifically apologizing to end the conversation, because then I feel like that would maybe not allow for appropriate communication. You can't like talk it through and go, or especially if you are apologizing, then it doesn't necessarily give you a chance to come back to it. You're kind of
That's true.
Yeah, look, you should hear my apology. It's like, I apologize right now. You are not in the
I am terrible at apologies also. So I don't know about that either. I would never, I mean, I have a hard time apologizing for myself. So
what do you think, Shahnila?
I think it reminds me of Dr. Phil one time. I mean, in his show, he always used to say, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? Which one do you want to be? And sometimes I think it depends on the situation. Because if you're just apologizing to like, okay, I don't want to talk about it anymore, but that thing is still going to come up again. And then you're going to have to go through it again until you resolve it. So I think being patient to hear the other person and not raise your voice, but just keep it and maybe just kind of say, let's come back to it later. You know what? Like, I'm just getting upset. Let's just come back to it later.
So that was a joke, but seriously, I do say that. And I do say, listen, I'm sorry, I'm not in the correct state of mind to, understand your point of view. So let's just take a break. Yeah, I can.
You're not in the correct state of mind. You'll be like,
yeah. No, I mean, I am. You know me by now. You talk so calmly. I was thinking probably half of your discussions like diffuse by the end of your sentence.
I'm calm right now, you guys. I'm gonna tell my husband after this. They're telling me that, and I'm not. I think I get when it's my husband, I get really defensive. And he's like, okay, I can't even talk to you because it's kind of like, you're right, you're already set on your ways, and if I disagree, then you just kind of like go in attack mode. So it's really hard. So that's why he'll back off more, because then I'm just on top of that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm similar too. And then I just the phrase that we use in our house is, are we receptive? And so like us and the kids will say like, I'm not receptive right now. So like, I'm not, no matter what you say, I'm not receptive to it. And like the kids will tell me too, like, I'm not receptive right now, Mom. And so then I'll just have to wait till they are receptive and they'll tell me, and then we'll discuss whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I get exactly like that.
I'm good at arguing. So I think,
aren't we all?
Between the two of us, I feel like he's more the one who will like back off. But in like the last few years, it makes me feel guilty when I see that he's doing that. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm pushing too hard. Maybe that's I should come back around and give him an opportunity, because he's just not as quick on his feet in an argument. Like he'll hear what I'm saying, and I have point after point after point just ready to go. And he just doesn't think that way. So it takes him a while to come back to it. But by then it's already over with and he doesn't really have that chance. So lately I feel more guilty about it. I'm not as proud of it as I used to be.
I think we women have that innate capability of coming point after point. We are like, we just start throwing daggers and they're like, oh my God, great
Right.
woman.
Just be done with it.
Yeah. Mariam Rizvi, she says, apologizing can help start a conversation too. It takes two to create an argument sometimes.
Yeah,
That's true too.
that is definitely. I mean, so I guess if in that case, if you are not talking about it, an apology, you can come and be like, hey, this and this happened. I'm really sorry that this happened. Let's talk about it. So that's a good point. I agree with that too. So you want to hear the other responses too?
Yes.
Let's see. We have giving one another time to talk, listen, touch, laugh, and just be. Another one that I really liked is not talking about our relationship with friends or families.
Ooh, that is a really good one.
That is, I really, really appreciate that one. I think generally in life, I like to say to keep the very best and the very worst just totally to yourself. And in the meantime, because your problems, other people might find joy in, first of all. And also, if they don't, if they love you and they're on your side, let's say, then they're going to hold grudges against your partner that you might not even hold. You get past it, you love them, you want to move on. And then other people are going to remember, like, but remember that one time he did that and he did this. And it's just not a good idea. But how do you then find a listening ear? How do you vent and get it off your chest? What do you think?
Probably like a counselor or a therapist or somebody that works in marriage, or even somebody that you may just trust, but you don't have that family relationship with them. Or maybe there could be somebody in your family or your friend circle who you feel like they could be objective.
Yeah, I feel like I have one friend that I don't mind her knowing the good and the bad of like our relationship, and she knows like a lot of, like, whenever we go through like rough patches and stuff, she's usually the one that I will confide in, and she is very objective where she'll tell me, no, Mariam, you got to chill out about this, or whatever it is. And when we move past it, she never brings it up again. Which doesn't mean that it's like not tarnishing her, I don't know, idea of us or whatever, but it's just like the fact that, like Shahnila was saying, she's objective about it. So she's not going to keep bringing up all those things again.
So then someone else talked about open, regular check-ins about physical intimacy. So again, we're talking about communication and intimacy, but making sure that you are talking about it. And that is a big one, again, in the community. When we go back to that topic, I can't remember which episode, that the Staying Connected episode. And being open enough to say what is working, what is not working, have things changed, all of that stuff. But do we do this? Is the question.
My marriage, like sometimes I'm amazed how many, like, okay, fine, I shamelessly say 90% of the conversation is around that. Make jokes about it. We just, in passing, we talk about it. Like, those are amazing. I'm like, wow, somebody just saw like what we are talking about right now. Okay. Yeah.
So Iram has it covered.
I think it's more from my husband's side, mashallah. He makes sure it's all covered, alhamdulillah. But I, like I said, humor, and I think that's between me and him. It's humor that connects us more than anything, and we took this, and this is an important part of marriage, right? And he found a way to make me comfortable with this thing. It's important for him, and humor is important for me. So he just mashed it both and he said, okay, you know what? I'll give you this package. Now, what are you going to say about it? So yeah, alhamdulillah.
I think my husband and I discuss things. I guess whatever issues or I don't know, whatever comes up, we discuss it. How about you, Shahnila?
I'm pretty open with my husband, but sometimes, well, a lot of times, we'll have totally different views on it.
Mm-hmm.
Views on anything really, and sometimes I think a lot of times I think I'm right, and I said that, it's just I have a different point of view. I grew up differently. There's just so many things, right? And I think a lot of times I think I'm right. And so he knows that I think that. So that doesn't always, like if you think that the other person's judging you or they think that you're right, you're always wrong, then they kind of back off and then they're like, okay, well, what's the point, And so I think having that communication that is always constantly happening, and it's a balance of so many different things. Like, you don't want to eat the same thing every single day for dinner, but when you change it up and you have a bunch of different things, then when you go back to that one item, then it's refreshing. Then it's like, oh, I like it again,
Right.
So it's kind of like that with, I feel like in marriage, in keeping the spice there, keeping, a balance of so many different things. Where you're not always serious, you're not always stuck in one way, but you can be yourself. And they get to see different sides of you and you get to see different sides of them and uplift each other.
Okay, just for the conversation that she gave, just for the lines, we should award her, mashallah. Anybody listening would not know what the question was. You said it.
Wow.
You did really say that.
Abaya, niqab, mashallah.
What was the question? Maybe I missed it.
No. She's saying you did such a good job because you said some very clear and specific things without actually having to say them. That was good. For that.
Yep. What was the question though, really?
The question is, are you able to communicate and, effectively about intimacy? And you are, and you explained how and, what it is that you communicate. So I think that that's really good.
How do you guys think that your communication skills as a couple have evolved over the years?
Oh, perfectly well, mashallah. And look at him and he is like, yeah, I know. Anything. My twitch, my eye twitch, my muscle twitch, I'm sometimes like, I'm scared he's so receptive. And I'm like, oh my God, I second, third emotion. Like he knows. And he tells me. And I don't negate anymore. I'm like, yeah, he knows. I'm so comfortable now. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. And this happened just in the last 5 years. I've been married for 15 years, and this happened just in the past 5 years. The decade before that is another story.
But it takes time, though. It does, because it takes arguments and fights and misunderstandings for you to start to realize where they're coming from. Like, there's a lot of things that I've learned that are so unintentional, things that, you take personally that you find offensive or whatever. And then it's so unintentional. And then as you get to know them better and you get to know their intentions and the way their brain works, like how they got from point A to point B. Because in the past, like in the beginning of your marriage, you're like, why are you even saying this? Like, where did this come from? But now it's like, I can actually travel the route with him. I can see how he got to that point, and it really makes it so much easier. And that just comes with time. Like, we didn't work on that specifically. It just happens.
That's true.
I think you're right. I've been married, I feel like, the least amount from all four of us. And we would never have the bond that we have now if we didn't go through not just time, but all of the bad times that we had together and all the struggles that we had to go through and the different challenges and tests that Allah has thrown our way. We would never be where we are right now. Our communication would never be how it is. And it's similar to how Seema was talking about in the, which episode was it that Seema was talking about the infertility thing? Like she wanted this child, and she felt like she had to, had to go through all this for it. I feel like it's like that. Like we work so hard, without really even knowing that we're working so hard, because we're just trying to get through this struggle. And then on the other side, it's like much more comfortable, and the communication is better, because we were both really poor communicators. And now we're like, we need to communicate, teach the kids, got to communicate, nobody's mind reader. got to learn how to communicate. And we would never have gotten to this point if we didn't go through all of that.
I think I realized through the years that my husband is so patient. Like he's been so patient with me, and I was telling some friends earlier this year, I was like, you know what? Like, who do I think I am? Who did I think I was? And, I thought I was like all that and just like so demanding. And he was so patient. And the more I realized how I was, and then I'm thinking that, wow, not everybody, I'm not perfect. Mm-hmm. And there's so many things that he could have said to me, that he could have come back with, come back. He could have had so many comebacks and mistakes that I made, or pointing them out, but he doesn't do that. I probably do that more. And just the patience, and then looking back at that helps me be more like that. It's like, to be more compassionate and be forgiving, because there were so many things that I did and he never said anything about those. And he could still call me out all the time, but he doesn't. Yeah. So that there's something to be said about that.
Absolutely. It's funny that you say that, because Mir and I had this very specific problem of like, when he would do something that I didn't like, I would bring it up and I would want to talk about it. And sometimes I would be annoyed when I talked about it or whatever, but I would want to handle it so we can move forward and whatever. And he would say, he'd be like, man, you do this all the time and I don't ever say anything. I'm like, but why don't you say anything? Like, tell me so I can like fix it. And sometimes it would be the same thing. Like when we were first kind of transitioning from our old authoritative style of parenting over to peaceful parenting, like making those changes, I'd be like, hey, can you not say that to the girls? This is why. Remember, we talked about this and that, whatever. And it can be not like offensive, but it's like it hurts to be like, oh, I'm not doing the right thing with my children. So he didn't like that, but he'd be like, well, you do it. I'm like, well, tell me when I do it. Like, tell me so I don't do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want either of us to do it. And so at first he wasn't understanding. And then I had to say, I'm like, hey, this is the thing. When I'm telling you and you're doing it right now, it's because I'm trying to solve something. But if you're telling me that I did something weeks ago and now you're mad about it, I'm like, to me, that's petty. Like if you're going to hold on to it, then I'd rather you just say it. Like, don't keep quiet, to keep the peace. I'd rather let's talk about it and make it through. And he didn't understand that at first, because I would get so annoyed when he would like throw it back at me. I'm like, well, because you're holding on to it, because you're like watching me do it and you're saying, oh, she does this and this and this, and then not saying it. And then when I'm like trying to correct you, you're just throwing it in my face. And it's like, but I'm not doing it right now. So it was, again, just a major misunderstanding. And when he finally understood why I was getting upset, he thought that made a lot of sense. He's like, oh yeah, okay, that does make sense. So it's like, either you say it right then or you don't say it, but don't hang on to it to throw back at me later, because that's not fair. But so that communication is so important.
It's really true. Tell us another response that you got.
Somebody said, don't be mad at the same time.
Oh, I guess that kind of goes with the apology one response that the other person had.
Yeah, I think be aware if the other person is just way more fired up.
Yeah,
then not let them have it.
That's true too. Like if I'm irritable and then my husband is upset about something, then I will automatically I'm like, all right, I got to be the calm one. Right. I got to make sure like we got to balance each other a little bit.
I think it makes it really difficult. I mean, it depends if you're living with more people, if you have extended family, if there's so many other factors then that come in the way of the marriage, then some of these kind of fall off.
That's
And
true too. Yeah.
or just a difference between, like, let's say you say something and your husband says something, that has to do with maybe your in-laws or something, and then you're going to be the bad guy. So there's like this cultural expectation of what a wife is supposed to be like, or what the marriage is supposed to be like, and that can kind of hinder communication, or maybe one of the couples, they're weak in certain respects, and they kind of put it on the other person, and then the other person is looked at as the bad guy. So because of the extended family and just the way that our culture is, sometimes that affects the marriage, and actually a lot of times it does.
Yeah, having another party there definitely affects the marriage, and especially when it's a parent, because you kind of regress a little bit back to whatever you felt and how you behaved in childhood. You kind of regress back to that. Even if you made all those improvements, then you're kind of just placed back into the old habits that you had.
And I think sometimes, that's being modest to say sometimes. I'm gonna put husbands on the spot and say that a lot of times they don't know how to balance between like their wife and their parents. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Iram. I know you're gonna say something.
Just yesterday, Sheikh Asim Hakim Quick. I don't know if you know Sheikh Asim. Like he's like
In the
one of
UK.
the sheikhs he comes from Saudi Arabia channel. I'm not remembering his name correctly. So somebody had put up the question to him that my parents do not like my wife, and they've sent my wife and the child away, and I cry every day, but I can't make them agree to bring my wife back. You know what the sheikh said? The sheikh said, "You should not. You are a disgrace to be called a husband." You shouldn't. A man who is married and has a wife and a child is asking permission to bring back the wife and a child. You shouldn't get that wife and child back. It is better if she leaves you. You don't deserve her. He was so bad. He said, then you are still suckling milk from your mother's breast.
Ooh.
He's going hard.
And he is a big sheikh. He's not like he's not like, and
Basically, you're saying that you're a boy. Like you're not even
right.
yeah. And I was like, oh my God, the sheikh went all out.
I mean, he's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong.
He's
But
definitely not wrong.
you don't hear men scholars saying
No,
that to men
you
like
don't.
that, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah. So what Shahnila was just now saying,
for sure.
there was somebody that messaged me saying that I want to make a different decision for my family because of my kids. I want to move, and my husband doesn't want to, and my in-laws don't want him to.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like, okay, and she's like, I'll move with the kids. I don't care. And I'm just like, does he know that? And she's like, what should I do? And I'm like, talk to him about it. Like really talk to him and let him know exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
And then he can make that decision. But I could see a lot of husbands might be like, oh, that's so tough. What should I do? And that's so sad that his parents should be like, you know what? This is your family. You do what's best for your family. But they're not, because they still think they know what's best.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's hard. Yeah.
That is hard. I mean, extended family, I'm so aware of that even with the kids now. And it's so surprising to me the amount of control people think they have over other people. And then the people they have control over, they get used to it, right? That's a form of abuse or narcissism and all of that. But sometimes my kids are so small, and still I feel like I only want such little control. Like I don't want to be the reason they do everything. I want them to have the autonomy. So it's so crazy for me to even fathom being elderly and then wanting to have so much say in my child's life, seeing them married with children and then being like, this is what you're supposed to do and you have to listen to me still. It's like, I know that's an older way of thinking, obviously, and it's very common, but it's so hard for me to even put myself in that space of mind or that frame of mind to think of how they get there.
And it's generational, so that probably happened to them, you know, and they think that's just the way it's supposed to be. Where respect means you kind of, you know, it's out of respect, but I think it's that they don't have the right definition of what really respect means.
Absolutely.
They think that's
definitely agree with that. Yeah. Respect is interchangeable with obedience a lot of time.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
See, all this generation that we're talking about, they all left their homes and their parents behind. And they all raised us up without, you know, I don't know. I mean, we're living here. I was born, brought up abroad. So I don't understand this concept still, that this is not our generation. This is not the millennial generation that is the first of its kind that actually stepped away from the house, lived in a different land, raised a different raised a family altogether. Actually, in fact, if parents migrated in, if our parents migrated in their youth, they did not even live with their parents. Am I making sense? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
But still this issue, like, I know it, I've heard from in my own relatives, I've heard this, like, she says, oh my God, study hard, my whole future depends on you, to her kid. And one day I stopped her and I asked her, yeah, are you serious? She says, yes, he's my investment. I said, no, seriously, are you serious? She says, what do you mean, are you serious? Of course I'm going to live with him. I said, you are just going to repeat the cycle that you hate so much? She says, I don't hate it, I'm fine. Just because I bitch about it doesn't mean I hate it. I was like, oh my God, I'm living with psychopaths. But see, the thing is, it's so culturally embedded that when we say, like, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, like, his daughters, they moved away, like, there was no notion like you have to, you know, all live in the same house. That there was, the village was there, we were all close by at that time, we were all neighbors at that time, but nobody was living in the same house, or at least not in the same space. Maybe the stories were different, I don't know, subhanallah. But yeah,
everybody still had their own space, which is different than having your parents live in the same house and share everything that you share. It's completely different.
And even if they do, I think that having boundaries, having that, because a lot of times there isn't any, and it's when you try to have boundaries, then that's looked at as disrespectful.
Yeah. But that's a very tricky line to walk because you, especially me, born and raised here, my views and thoughts about things are so vastly different. It's, again, I have to choose and pick my battles very, very carefully because I do want to have a good relationship. So with my in-laws living with me, it's like I do have boundaries, but I want to make sure I'm not pushing them too far out of their comfort zone to make it an uncomfortable living situation for everybody, as far as like how we feel about each other. And, you know, I don't want to make them feel unwelcome in the house, but sometimes, especially with the generational gap and a little bit of a cultural gap, the things that I don't think would be offensive can be offensive. So I have to think and think again, and then kind of filter messages through my husband, because it's his parents, to make sure that, because he knows how to talk to them, right? He grew up with them. He knows how to send the message in a way that'll be least offensive. And if it is offensive, they can tell him to shut up. You know what I mean? They can say no, but they're not necessarily going to be as harsh with me. They'll just get their feelings hurt. So it's hard. It's hard to create boundaries that you're comfortable with without hurting them at the same time.
But you know what? You having a little bit of a different culture, that's actually an advantage, because they can always, in their back of their mind, they're like, okay, well, you know, one of them can tell the other one, look, she is half, you know.
That's true.
She's not, you know, all Pakistani. So she's not fully Pakistani. So don't expect that from her. So if you were fully Pakistani, then you would have more expectations.
Very true. And I was very aware of that and played that to my advantage in the beginning. I played down my cultural knowledge a little bit to make sure that there wasn't too much of an expectation there. And I feel like then over time, they just got to know me. And now it's just, things are just a little bit more understood. Okay, so the next response was secrets to a happy marriage are division of labor, team spirit, and not holding on to grudges.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love
those are
the
really
division
good
of
ones.
labor.
Yeah.
Making sure that husband and wife are equally contributing to the home and however that looks for you and your family, but everybody should be contributing. I was saying today that I took a nap today right before this because I didn't sleep well for the last like 3-4 nights. So Samir came home from work early and he took over. Like I served dinner and then I came upstairs and I took a nap. And I just went downstairs to get something right before we started, and he had cleaned the kitchen and put things away, and he made everything really nice. So that way I'm done for the day. So because I took a nap, it's not like I have extra work to do tomorrow. It's done. He took over. And I don't necessarily ask him to do that often because he does work a lot, but it's nice to know that the possibility is there.
Definitely. When I used to work a lot the past few years, I would work on the weekends, and then my husband would be home with the kids, and they would just hang out and they would have like boys weekend or whatever. But at the beginning, I would come home and I was working 12-hour shifts, so it's like 13 hours. And then I'd come home and I'd sleep on Saturday, and then I'd eat, he'd make dinner, I'd eat, I'd go to sleep. Sunday I'd work again. And then Monday when I'd wake up, the kitchen would be a mess and like the house would be a mess. And I was like, no, this is not going to work for me. I don't care when you guys do it. The house needs to not look like this. And I told him, like, when I hand over the house to you and the kids, like everything is in working order and it's nice and it's functioning and it looks okay. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it can't be in the way that it's been, on Mondays or whatever. And so I feel like that's where the communication comes in, that if you are not feeling like the labor is being divided equally, that you would talk to them about it and come to an agreement, because some people don't mind doing certain tasks and other people are like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. Like I hate cleaning the bathroom. And I'm always like, if you want to help me, just go clean the bathroom. And now he probably thinks that like, it's like a joke. And I'm like, no, really, I don't want to clean the bathroom. Like if you want to help me clean the bathroom, I don't mind cleaning the kitchen, go clean the bathroom, please.
It's so funny because living in a house of mostly girls, I don't think about the bathroom very often.
Oh.
But everybody that I know that has more than 2 boys,
oh my
it's
God.
such a thing. They're always talking about cleaning the bathroom.
Oh
it's so
goodness.
funny to me. Other than Lana randomly taking little showers in the sink at just random parts.
But I mean, I'd rather have water mess than
exactly,
the other mess that we
thing.
have. Yeah.
Exactly. It's so funny to me because it's not really, I have to clean the bathroom, but it's not really a thought that I have.
Oh my
but
God.
I mean, everybody that I know that has more than 2 boys, it's a thing.
And we have a half bath downstairs. I don't even use that because I'm like, I clean it and then like an hour later, it's gross. And then they bring like stuff from outside because they want to like wash it. And they're like, oh, I found this really cool thing. And it's going to be an inside thing. So I'm just going to wash it and clean it. And then there's just like dirt and everything. And it's always a mess somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, the dirt thing I have, that's everywhere all the time. Let's see. The last one that I wanted to share that I really like also is don't make marriage your purpose in life. Once you focus on yourself and grow as a person, then you can focus on your marriage.
That's a really, really good one.
Yes, it is. It's nice that she brought that up because we can make that clear. We're talking all about how to have a happy marriage and all the things we can do to contribute to a happy marriage. But this is not all that there is in life. Like we are each our own individuals and we have to have our own ways of being happy and growing. And growth is what makes us happy and feel whole as a person and all of that. So I like that one.
I think that when we do go and do our own thing, and then we come to the marriage, we bring so much more.
Yes.
We bring our best self. So that is really, really important. And I always encourage, I do my own thing. And I feel like just right now during the pandemic, there isn't too much going on. So my husband misses that. and I make sure that I do my own thing. And so I was telling him that, I just told him this today. I'm like, maybe the cousins that you do see, maybe soon you guys can go like a weekend getaway or something, or like go up to the cabins or something like that, where you just go with some guys and just get some, alone time. Yes. And so I feel like that would really just help a lot. Instead of thinking, I know a lot of people, we feel like, we need so much help for, with our kids. It's like, I can't afford for my husband to even go out once a week, because I need his help. But the thing is that we both need time to rejuvenate.
Yeah, I mean, a marriage is two individuals coming together. It is a union, but you're two entirely different people with different wants and needs and likes, and that has to be honored in order for you to be happy to bring, like you said, Shahnila, your best self forward.
And it's so nice to see your spouse get excited about something. Yeah. And how can you see that if you are always there? How can they bring you these new ideas and these new things that intrigue them if you are just always there? And the only things that you guys ever do are things that you're doing together. Yes. You won't see that. And then you'll miss out on those nice moments that you can have.
Aska says, two halves don't make a couple, two wholes make a couple.
I like that.
That's true. Yeah, I like that. You don't need a spouse to be whole and complete, because if you are feeling incomplete, a spouse is not gonna be the thing that makes you feel complete. You're just gonna feel incomplete with somebody else there.
And that's a lot of responsibility to put on somebody else too.
Right.
To like, it's your job to make me feel whole. That's eventually it becomes too much for anybody.
Yeah.
And that brings us to 1050.
Oh, nice.
The yearning to love someone is innate. The yearning to have a partner is innate. It cannot be denied. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made everything in pairs. But we make it obsessive, excessive, indulge too much in this idea of being in love, of having a support system, and that cripples us. That cripples us internally, because we put every single thread of whatever we have in this notion that the other person is going to be able to carry me, hold me, take care of me, whatever it is. And one of the biggest things that as a woman I have seen, thought about, even felt is, what if my journey is not, my journey is left alone? What if I'm divorced, or what if I'm a widow? What happens next? What happens then? How will I move forward? And I honestly, I say that, I'm going to miss the person, but I'm not even scared of being alone. I'm scared of functioning alone. I am codependent. I'm telling that I see that in my marriage, that I'm very codependent on my spouse. I'm not shy to say that it's not more than love. It's this idea that how am I going to function without him?
When it's been so long and you just are so used to something, or you're used to somebody, then it is hard.
Yeah. And I think that's common.
I feel the exact same way. Like I could if I wanted to, but like, do I want to?
Right.
We don't want to, like, see, if somebody says, oh, so if you, na'uzubillah, if something happens, will you remarry? I say, astaghfirullah, are you crazy? Why would I want to do? I mean, just see, nothing big. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from any bad thing happening. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never test us. I mean, may we be so good and easy, and everything comes easy to us. Being a human being, I can never say never. I don't know. But living the institute of marriage, mashallah, nobody wants to, think that, okay, I want a second chance. This is that second, unless until na'uzubillah, because we started with this. We said that we are satisfied with what we have. and we're trying to make best of what we have, right? And that is why this is where it is coming from. I'm definitely not going to talk about the people who now are in bad marriages and who want to escape those marriages or who have escaped those marriages successfully. Alhamdulillah, kudos to them. This is coming from a very typical woman's perspective, husband who thinks, I don't know any other way.
Yeah.
I mean, I sometimes think about that. Any relationship that we have, whether it's our kids, our husband, our parents, I often, not every single day, but that's why as a Muslim, we're supposed to contemplate death, because anything can come at any time.
Yeah.
And to kind of be ready, we're told to go visit the graveyard sometimes to just look at what the reality is. The reality is that there's a cycle of life, and you don't know when your time is, and you don't know when the other person's time is. And that actually helps me a lot, because then I'm able to prioritize what's worth talking about, what's not, it just makes it more genuine. You get rid of all the extra stuff. If you're thinking about like, oh my gosh, this could be, sometimes, I used to read more about death and the afterlife and stuff, and that really helped. But when one person does leave your life, then you realize that you're like, wow, this is very fragile, and you might go out somewhere, you don't know if you're coming back. And we see stories like this all over, where somebody got in an accident and they passed away. And Yasmin Mujahid, she talks about this, like, if you're in a house and the chandelier is the central part, if your husband is a central part, if your kids are a central part, and when that falls, or if that falls, then your whole life is gone. Yeah. So we always have to keep Allah at the center. And this is just part of it, and it's temporary. These are all temporary. And inshallah, there'll be a time when we can have that forever and ever. But this is still the dunya. And I think keeping that in mind, that our whole life will just become adjusted. So it's like exactly how it's supposed to be. And we focus on the important stuff. We're more forgiving. We're not going to hold on to grudges. We're just going to say that, what? Yeah, it's because not just from the top, but like we're really going to,
I think one of the things that I advanced in my marriage journey is, and this happened, I don't know, I know, but of course I'm not going to say why, but it's too personal, but still, I think that turmoil that happened, I could never have overcome it if I did not think, you know what, I am this breath and he's this one breath that we are listening. I started listening to his snoring more in a very different way, like like I can hear him breathe. He's here. It don't just get this fact. This is a gift. This is not something that you can take for granted, that he is here. Just take this moment, be grateful. This shall pass. Whatever it is that you're going through, this shall pass. Because like I say, the gifts and the bounties that I've enjoyed in my life are way more than the bakwas that we have. Bakwas means bakwas. I don't know. Translate bakwas. the tough times, the rough times, the times where ego comes in, the times where you're miserable, all of that.
Yeah.
How?
Do you ever, yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, every once in a while, I do listen to like heartbeats, whether it be my husband or the kids. And it's like you put my head and you can hear the heartbeat. And then it's like, it's so overwhelming to think this is the difference between life and death. Like just this little beat, and there's nothing, it's just is because it is, like it's amazing to think of all that's going into the body and what keeps you alive. And if it didn't beat as it's beating right now, the person would cease to exist. And I know that is deep, and it's morbid a little bit, but it's
reality.
Yeah, you hear it and it's so real, and I find it really amazing.
So whatever makes whether it's communication or respect or love, all of these things that make a happy marriage, I think it's really each other, having each other, and that bond, that's what makes it happy, no matter what it is. And that itself is a blessing. And for those who don't have that, that could be their trial, because everybody's going through something, whether it's something with child related, personal related, marriage related, that something that they're going through. And that doesn't mean that Allah hasn't given them something and, they don't deserve it. I think it's more of just a test. And everybody's going to be going through some kind of test. And even within the marriage, within happy marriages, we go through tests.
Yeah.
So sometimes our marriage is, if it isn't happy, then it's there to teach us something. And when we come out of that, we're going to be stronger, whether with that person or without them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mariam and Iram, do you guys have any final thoughts?
We can go on and on about how great wives we are, mashallah.
We should talk about
Literally.
Alhamdulillah. I think
we should give credit where it's due.
Right.
But
I mean, our husbands are pretty lucky to have us.
Yes, they are.
I think of our children's marriages though, and I make this thought that, Ya Rab, how like what I'm seeing today, what you're studying, Shahnila, what you talk about, the culture of porn and all of that, and where all of our American scholars almost have addressed it now, right? And girls and boys and all of those, like this whole concept of morality within marriage, loyalty within marriage, the haya concept within marriage. I honestly believe by the time our children come into marriage, it is going to be very different.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be very different. And so I make this dua that Ya Rab, allow them the miracle of a good marriage, a marriage that was of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his wives, because I don't have any other good examples, and of marriages that will stick, and of marriages where there will be honor, and there will be mercy, and there will be love, and there will be loyalty, and there will be haya, because I honestly think we have enjoyed it in our marriages. The sense of loyalty, and the sense of one man or one woman person. I don't see that. I don't see that. And our Deen also talks about polygamy, and that's a totally different subject. We have come to be averted towards polygamy, and rather sleep around with someone without giving this relationship a name, but don't marry them because I cannot see another woman with my man, although I know that he might be going around with other women. I know this is going in a different direction, but it's an issue. It's an issue, and our children are going to face it way harder than we are. Today, our men are like, okay, one wife is more than enough. Oh, why would I ever, go ahead and blah, blah, blah. And I don't even have time to breathe, let alone have another wife. Do you want they say all of that. But there's so much to uncover when it comes to this topic. So this is one of the things that I wanted to say in the end, that make dua, and the ones I understand my privilege. That's what I'm basically trying to say. Yes. I am coming from a point of privilege where I sit here with my friends, with my like-minded sisters, and we're able to laugh about and feel candid and casual, and all of this huge blessing. And I understand that, and I don't take it lightly.
Yes, alhamdulillah, yeah.
I agree. I think all four of us, when it comes to marriage and family right now, definitely come from a place of privilege. And that's why we're able to have this conversation, and that's why we're able to sit here and be together, like you were saying. So it's something that has to be acknowledged, because people tuning in are coming from all different spaces and frames of relations. So it's very important to note that. I'm glad you brought that up. But I think that wraps up episode 5.
Yes.
So we are at the end of our marriage. We got one more, right?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about our childbirth stories.
Yes. So this kind of wraps up the marriage portion of it. We're going to start moving into something else for season 2. So next episode is going to be about our childbirth stories, which I think are very interesting. So thank you to everybody for.
It's very simple. Go to the hospital, come back with the baby.
We'll discuss it questions. We'll discuss it as it relates to like, because before your childbirth, it was just you two, and then after it was another person there that you had to keep alive.
So that transition, Iram, start thinking about that. Think back to the first one. But thank you to everybody who tuned in live.